If someone told me a love story in Phuket could cost me 600,000 baht, I would have laughed. But it wasn't just money I lost. It was my pride, my peace, and the one person I thought was my future. Fa said she loved me for who I was, an old farang who just wanted to be happy again. She called me her lucky man, kissed my hands, and said, "No money can buy love." Then one morning, she was gone, and so was every baht I had saved. I sold my house in Perth 3 months after the divorce papers came through. Susan kept the dog, the good furniture, and whatever dignity I had left after 26 years of marriage fell apart in a lawyer's office on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I remember sitting in that office, watching the rain streak down the window, thinking this is what the end of a life looks like. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just paperwork and a receptionist asking if I wanted tea or coffee. I was 58 years old, retired from fixing electrical panels in mining towns across Western Australia, and I had nothing anchoring me to that country anymore. My daughter Sarah lived in Melbourne with her husband and 2 kids I'd only met twice. She called me on my birthday and Christmas, and the conversations were always the same polite, distant exchanges that made me feel like a stranger. My son Michael stopped calling altogether after I missed his wedding because I was too drunk to get on the plane. He sent me a message a year later saying he needed space, and I never heard from him again. So when the house sold and I had about 2 million baht in my account after all the debts were cleared, the lawyer fees, the settlement, the credit cards I'd maxed out trying to save a marriage that was already dead, I did what every broken man does. I ran. I booked a one-way ticket to Thailand and told myself I was starting over. The truth is, I was just trying to stop hurting. I'd heard the stories, read the blogs, listen to Greg at the pub talk about his year in Thailand after his wife left him. "Mate, just go," he told me over a beer, his voice rough from 40 years of smoking. "Rent a place near the beach, get a motorbike, eat cheap. You'll figure out the rest. And if you don't, at least you'll be warm while you're figuring it out." That last part stuck with me. At least I'd be warm. So I packed 2 suitcases, left everything else in storage, and flew out of Perth on a Wednesday morning in March. I remember looking out the plane window as Australia disappeared beneath the clouds and thinking, this is it. This is me giving up on the life I thought I'd have and hoping there's something else out there worth living for. Phuket wasn't my first choice. I'd heard too many stories about it being overrun with tourists, scams, and bar girls who could smell desperation from across Bangla Road. I'd read the forums, the warnings, the horror stories about guys losing their life savings to women who promised forever and delivered nothing. But Greg had spent a year there and survived, even thrived. "It's not all bad, mate," he'd said. "You just gotta keep your head on straight. Don't fall in love in the first month, don't flash your money around, and for God's sake, don't think you're special. You're not. You're just another lonely farang with a bank account." I laughed when he said it, but I took the advice seriously. Or at least I thought I did. I found a 1-bedroom apartment in a quiet building off the main road near Patong Beach. It wasn't fancy. The walls were thin enough that I could hear my neighbor's television through the concrete. The air conditioner rattled like a dying engine every time I turned it on, and the view from my balcony was just another building's concrete backside with laundry hanging from rusty railings. But it was mine, and for the first time in years, I could breathe. I'd wake up without an alarm, make instant coffee on the small electric stove, and sit on the balcony watching the neighborhood come to life. Motorbikes buzzing past, street vendors setting up their carts, kids in school uniforms walking in groups and laughing. It was chaotic and noisy and nothing like the silent house I'd left behind in Perth, where every room echoed with arguments and resentment. Here, the noise felt alive. It felt hopeful. Every evening, I'd walk down to the beach and sit on the same bench near the old massage huts where the aunties would call out to me in broken English. "Massage, sir? Very good, very cheap." I'd smile and shake my head, and after a few weeks, they stopped asking. They'd just nod at me like I was part of the scenery now, another fixture in their daily routine. I'd sit there for hours, watching the tourists take selfies, the vendors push their carts selling grilled corn and cold drinks, and the sky turn orange and purple like something out of a postcard you'd send to someone you wanted to make jealous. I didn't talk to anyone. I didn't need to. I was just there, existing, trying to figure out if this quiet, empty feeling was peace or just the calm before I gave up completely. Some days it felt like peace. Other days it felt like I was just waiting for permission to disappear. That's when I met her. I'd gone to the hotel near my apartment to ask about booking a fishing trip. I'd seen a flyer at a 7-Eleven advertising half-day tours to the islands, and I thought maybe getting out on the water would do me good. The hotel lobby smelled like jasmine and coffee, and the floor was polished so clean I could see my reflection in it. The girl behind the counter looked up at me and smiled like she'd been waiting for me all day. Not the practiced smile of someone doing customer service, but something warmer, more genuine. "Hello, sir. How I can help you?" Her voice was soft, almost musical, with that accent that made every word sound deliberate and kind. She had this way of tilting her head when she spoke, like she was genuinely curious about whatever you were going to say. I told her I wanted to go fishing, maybe see some islands, nothing fancy. She nodded, wrote something down in a notebook, and then looked at me again with those dark eyes that seemed to hold more kindness than I'd seen in years. "You stay in Phuket long time?" I shrugged. "Don't know yet. Maybe." She smiled wider, and I noticed the small dimple on her left cheek. "I think you like here. Phuket is good for people who want peaceful." I didn't know why, but that simple sentence hit me harder than it should have. Maybe it was the way she said it, or maybe I was just that starved for kindness. I thanked her, took the brochure, and left. But I couldn't stop thinking about her smile. It stayed with me all evening, through my walk on the beach, through my dinner of pad thai from a street cart, through the sleepless hours I spent staring at the ceiling fan spinning above my bed. The next day, I went back. I told myself it was to confirm the fishing trip, but I knew better. I showered, put on a clean shirt, and even combed my hair, which I hadn't bothered to do in weeks. She was there again, wearing the same hotel uniform, a white blouse and black skirt, her hair tied back neatly. When she saw me, her face lit up like I'd made her day just by walking through the door. "Oh, you come back. You decide already?" I hadn't decided anything, but I nodded anyway. "Yeah, I'll take the half-day trip." She clapped her hands together lightly, and I noticed her nails were painted a soft pink. "Good, good, you will love. Phuket sea so beautiful. Many fish, many island." She wrote down my details, her handwriting small and neat, and then she did something I didn't expect. She leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice like she was sharing a secret. "You go alone?" I nodded. She paused, bit her lip like she was thinking, and then said, "If you want, I can show you good place to eat after. Not tourist price. Real Thai food." I looked at her, trying to figure out if this was part of her job or something else, but her eyes were warm, not calculating. There was no hustle in her voice, no angle I could detect. So I said yes. That evening she met me outside the hotel after her shift ended. She'd changed into jeans and a simple pink top, and her hair was down now, falling past her shoulders. She looked younger than I'd thought, maybe late 20s, and I felt suddenly self-conscious about the age gap, the gray in my beard, the way my stomach pushed against my shirt. But if she noticed or cared, she didn't show it. She just smiled and said, "Come, I take you my favorite place." We walked through narrow streets I'd never noticed before, past shophouses and apartment buildings with laundry hanging from every window. She greeted people as we walked, waving to a woman selling fruit, calling out to a man fixing a motorbike. Everyone seemed to know her, and everyone smiled at me like I was lucky to be walking beside her. Maybe I was. She took me to a street stall tucked between a laundromat and a motorbike repair shop. The plastic stools were low and wobbly, and the smell of grilled pork and chili filled the air so thick I could taste it. She ordered for both of us in Thai, laughing with the vendor, an older woman with a gold tooth who kept glancing at me and grinning. When the food came, 2 plates piled high with rice, grilled pork, papaya salad, and a soup that smelled like lemongrass and heat, she watched me take my first bite. "You like?" I nodded, my mouth full of lime, fish sauce, and something I couldn't name but wanted more of. "It's incredible." She beamed, that dimple appearing again. "I told you. Farang always go wrong place. Too expensive, not real taste. I bring you real Phuket." We talked for 2 hours. She told me her name was Natita, but everyone called her Fa, which meant sky in Thai. "My mama give me this name because I born on day with very blue sky," she said, smiling at the memory. She said she grew up in a small village in Aizon, the poorest region of Thailand, came to Phuket for work when she was 19, and sent money home to her mother every month. "My mother's sick," she said quietly, stirring her soup without eating it. "She have diabetes, need medicine every month. I take care her. I only daughter, so I must." I told her about my marriage, my kids, my decision to leave Australia and start over in a country where I didn't know anyone or anything. She listened without interrupting, nodding at all the right moments, her eyes never leaving mine. When I finished, she reached across the table and touched my hand briefly, just a light touch, but it sent electricity through me. "You good man," she said softly. "I can see." I didn't feel like a good man. I felt like a failure, a coward who ran away instead of fixing his life. But hearing her say it made me want to be the man she thought I was. We started seeing each other almost every day. She'd finish her shift at the hotel, change out of her uniform, and meet me at different spots around the island. Sometimes we'd go to quiet beaches where the tourists hadn't found yet, little coves with clear water and soft sand where we'd sit and talk for hours. Other times we'd just sit at a 7-Eleven with iced coffee and watch the motorbikes go by, playing a game where we'd make up stories about the riders. "That man he go meet his girlfriend, but he late, so she angry," she'd say, pointing at a guy speeding past. "That lady, she go buy fish for dinner, but the market already close, so she sad." It was silly, childish even. But it made me laugh in a way I hadn't laughed in years. She never asked me for anything. Not once. When I offered to pay for meals, she'd insist we split it. "I have job," she'd say with that shy smile. "I not poor girl. I can pay too." That's what made me trust her. She didn't act like the stories I'd heard, the ones Greg had warned me about over beers in Perth. She was just sweet, simple, and real. One night, we were sitting on the beach at sunset, and she leaned her head on my shoulder. The moon was full, and the water looked like liquid silver stretching out to the horizon. "You know what I think?" she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. I looked down at her, at the way her hair caught the moonlight. "What?" She tilted her head up to meet my eyes, and I saw something in them I hadn't seen before. Vulnerability. Hope. "I think you my lucky man." I laughed, but it came out shaky, emotional. "Why's that?" She smiled, tracing circles on my arm with her finger, her touch feather light. "Because you come Phuket same time I pray for someone good. I pray Buddha for long time, ask for good man who not same like other farang. Not drunk, not mean, not only want one thing. And then you come. So I think Buddha listen." I didn't believe in Buddha, fate, or luck. I'd stopped believing in anything the day my marriage ended and my kids stopped calling. But in that moment, with her warmth against me and the sound of the waves in the background, I wanted to. I kissed the top of her head and whispered, "Maybe you're my lucky girl too." She didn't say anything. She just held my hand tighter, and we sat there until the moon was high and the beach was empty except for us. 3 months in, I felt like I had a life again. Not the life I'd planned, not the life I thought I'd be living at 58, but a life nonetheless. I rented a scooter, a beat-up Honda that backfired every time I started it, and let Fa use it whenever she wanted. She'd ride it to work, to the market, to visit her friends, and every time she returned it, she'd fill the tank and leave a little note in the seat compartment. "Thank you, my lucky man," or "You too good for me," or just a smiley face drawn in blue pen. I helped her send money to her mother when the hospital bills got too high. It was 15,000 baht the first time, and she cried when I transferred it. "I pay you back," she said, but I told her not to worry about it. "Family is important," I said. "I'm happy to help." I even paid for a small repair on her family's roof after a storm damaged it. It wasn't much, maybe another 20,000 baht, but it made me feel useful. It made me feel like I mattered. We'd ride to the viewpoints on the weekends, up the winding mountain roads where you could see the whole island spread out below, and she'd take photos of us with her phone. She'd post them on Facebook with captions like, "My happy time," and "With my best person," and heart emojis. I wasn't used to being someone's best person. It felt good. It felt real. I started imagining a future. Not a grand one, but something simple. Maybe I'd help her start a small business. Maybe we'd get a little house somewhere quiet. Maybe her family would accept me despite the age gap and the cultural differences. Maybe I'd finally have a reason to wake up in the morning that wasn't just killing time until I died. Then one evening, she told me she wanted to quit her job. We were eating som tam at our usual spot, that same street stall where we'd had our first meal together, and she said it casually, like it was something she'd been thinking about for a while. "I tired, Colin. Work at hotel, same every day. Wake up 6 in the morning, work until 6 at night, come home too tired for anything. I want do something my own." I asked her what she meant, setting down my spoon to give her my full attention. She looked at me with those big, hopeful eyes, and I could see she'd been thinking about this for a while. "I want open cafe. Small one, not big. Sell coffee, Thai dessert, maybe sandwich. I think many people like. I good at make coffee, and I know how to talk to customer. Hotel teach me this. But I want work for myself, not for other people." I thought it was a great idea. She was smart, friendly, hardworking, and she knew the island better than most. "How much would it cost to start?" I asked. She pulled out a small notebook from her purse, the kind school kids use, and showed me pages of neat calculations. Rent for a small shop, equipment, supplies, licenses, decorations. She'd done her research. "I think maybe 200,000 baht, maybe 300,000. I'm not sure exactly. Maybe more, maybe less. But I think if I have 300,000, I can start good." I did the math in my head. I had about 800,000 baht left in my account after paying rent for 6 months up front and all my living expenses. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to help her and still keep myself comfortable for another year or two. "What if I helped you?" I said. Her eyes widened, and she shook her head quickly. No, I cannot take your money. Too much. I just tell you my dream, but I not ask you for money." I reached across the table and took her hand, feeling how small it was in mine. "It's not taking, it's investing. We do it together, half and half like a team. You put in the work, I put in the money, and we split the profits. It'll give you the life you want, and give me something to do besides sit on the beach every day." She looked at me for a long time, and I could see her mind working, calculating, hoping. "You sure? This very big money?" I nodded. "I'm sure. I believe in you, Fa. And I want to help." She leaned over and kissed my cheek, and I felt her tears on my skin. "You too good for me, Colin. I don't know how I so lucky. I promise I work hard. I make you proud." A week later, I transferred 400,000 baht into her account. We went to the bank together, and I watched her face light up when the transaction went through. She showed me the paperwork for the cafe lease, a small shopfront near Phuket town, not in the tourist areas but in a neighborhood where locals lived and worked. She showed me quotes from suppliers, equipment sellers, a contractor who'd build the counter and install the wiring. She showed me the menu ideas she'd sketched out in that same little notebook, drawings of coffee cups and cakes and sandwiches with prices written next to them. It all looked legitimate. It all made sense. She said the place would be ready in 2 months, maybe 3. "Thailand's slow for everything," she said, laughing. "But I push them, make sure they work fast." I told her to take her time, do it right. I wasn't worried. I trusted her. I believed in us. But then the messages started getting shorter. At first, it was just little things. She'd reply hours later instead of minutes, saying she was busy with permits or meeting suppliers or dealing with contractors who didn't show up on time. I understood. Starting a business is stressful, especially in a country where nothing moves fast and everything requires paperwork in triplicate. I didn't want to be the needy boyfriend who couldn't give her space. But the distance grew. When I'd visit her apartment, she was never there. I'd knock on the door, wait, knock again, and nothing. I'd call, and she'd say she was at a meeting or with her friend Knock or helping her aunt with something. The excuses were always reasonable, always believable, but they stacked up. When we did see each other, she seemed distracted. She'd check her phone constantly, texting someone and smiling at the screen before putting it away quickly when she noticed me watching. "Who's that?" I'd ask, trying to sound casual. "Just Knock." She asked about the cafe. I started feeling something I hadn't felt since the divorce, that cold, creeping suspicion that something wasn't right, but I pushed it down. I told myself I was being paranoid, that this was just my old trauma talking, that I needed to trust her because without trust, what did we have? One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I drove to her apartment building and parked across the street, hidden behind a row of motorbikes. I sat there for over an hour, feeling pathetic, feeling like a stalker, hating myself for being that guy. But I couldn't leave. I needed to know. Then I saw her. She pulled up on the back of a motorbike, her arms wrapped around a Thai man I'd never seen before. He was young, maybe mid-30s, wearing a tight shirt that showed off his muscles and a flashy gold watch that caught the streetlight. She got off the bike, laughed at something he said, a real laugh, not the polite one she used with customers, and touched his arm before walking toward her building. Then she saw me. Her face went white. She froze, and for a second, neither of us moved. The man on the bike looked between us, confused, and said something in Thai. Fa shook her head at him, a quick gesture, and he drove off. Then she walked over slowly, her expression shifting into something I couldn't read. Fear, maybe. Or guilt. "Colin, what you doing here?" Her voice was calm, but her eyes were scared, darting between me and the street like she was looking for an escape. I swallowed hard, my mouth dry. Who was that? She glanced back at the now empty street. Friend. He helped me with cafe. Bring me home because I tired and too late for taxi. I wanted to believe her. I wanted it so badly it physically hurt. You didn't tell me you had a friend helping. She crossed her arms, defensive now. You not trust me? The question hit me like a punch. I don't understand why you're being so distant. We used to talk every day, see each other all the time, and now I barely hear from you. She sighed, looking down at the ground. I not distant. I just busy, you know this. You know I work hard for cafe. Why you come here and check on me like I do something wrong? I felt ashamed suddenly, like I was the one in the wrong. I'm sorry, I just miss you. She stepped closer and touched my arm briefly, but it didn't feel like it used to. It felt mechanical, obligatory. I miss you too. But you must understand, I'm very busy now. When cafe open we have more time, okay? I nodded slowly, hating how desperate I sounded, how weak. Okay. I'm sorry. She gave me a small smile that didn't reach her eyes. I call you tomorrow, okay? I tired now. She walked into her building without looking back. I sat in my truck for another 20 minutes before I drove home, my hands shaking on the wheel, my mind racing with questions I didn't want to answer. A week later, her phone was off. I tried calling in the morning, nothing. I tried texting, the messages showed as delivered but never read. I tried messaging her on Facebook, and I could see she was active, posting stories, but she didn't reply to me. I waited 2 days, thinking maybe her phone was broken or she'd lost it. On the third day, I went to the hotel where she worked. The manager, a middle-aged Thai woman in a business suit, looked at me sympathetically. Fa, not work here anymore. She quit 2 weeks ago. My stomach dropped. 2 weeks? She didn't tell me. The manager shrugged. She say she have new business, need to focus. We give her final pay, and she go. I thanked her and left, my mind spinning. She'd quit 2 weeks ago and never told me. Why? I drove to the address she'd given me for the cafe, the shopfront near Phuket town. But when I got there, there was no sign, no furniture, no equipment, nothing. Just an empty room with dust on the floor, a broken chair in the corner, and graffiti on the walls. My heart was pounding. I found the landlord, an older Thai man who was sweeping the street in front of his building. Excuse me, do you know about the cafe that was supposed to open here? He looked at the empty shop and shook his head. Girl come, pay deposit, say she open cafe, but she never come back. Deposit not enough for rent. I wait 1 month, then I take back the shop. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. Did she say where she went? He shook his head again. No, say anything. Just disappear. I checked my bank account on my phone right there on the street. 600,000 baht. That's how much I'd sent her over 5 months. The cafe investment, her mother's hospital bills, the roof repair, the scooter deposit, the rent money I'd given her when she said she was short 1 month, 600,000 baht. Gone. I sat on the curb outside that empty shopfront and stared at nothing. Cars drove past, people walked by, life continued around me, but I couldn't move. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even surprised. I was just hollow, empty. I kept replaying every moment, every smile, every time she'd said, "I love you," in her soft voice. Had any of it been real? Or had I just been another ATM with a heartbeat, another lonely farang who thought he was special? I spent the next 2 months barely existing. I stayed in my apartment, ate instant noodles and whatever I could buy at 7-Eleven, and avoided everyone. I stopped going to the beach. I stopped answering calls from Greg back in Perth. I just sat on my balcony, smoked cigarettes I'd started buying again after quitting 10 years ago, and watched the world move without me. My neighbor, an Australian expat named Lek, not his real name but what everyone called him, knocked on my door one day with 2 beers. "Mate, I heard what happened," he said, sitting down on my couch without asking. "I'm sorry." I shrugged, taking one of the beers. "It's my fault." He shook his head, his weathered face serious. "No, mate, it's not. But you're not the first, and you won't be the last." He told me stories about other guys, other women, other scams, some worse than mine, some almost identical. "They're good at it," he said. "They make you feel special, needed, like you're the answer to all their problems. And by the time you realize what's happening, you're too deep to get out without losing something." I asked him if he thought Fa ever cared about me at all. He looked at me for a long time before answering, taking a slow sip of his beer. "Maybe. Or maybe she just needed the money more than she needed to feel guilty. Maybe in her mind, you're a rich foreigner who can afford it, and she's got a sick mother and bills to pay. Maybe she even convinced herself she was doing what she had to do to survive. Either way, you'll never know, and that's the part that'll hurt the longest." 3 months after she disappeared, I saw her at Central Phuket Mall. I was buying a new phone charger because mine had frayed, and I was in the electronics section when I saw her walk out of a clothing store across the atrium. She was holding shopping bags, expensive-looking ones from stores I couldn't afford, and she was laughing. Her hair was longer now, highlighted with blonde streaks, and she was wearing a dress I'd never seen, something designer with a brand name I couldn't pronounce. She was holding hands with a white guy who looked about my age, maybe a bit older, with gray hair and a tourist's sunburn. They looked happy, comfortable, like they'd been together for years. She saw me, and for just a second, our eyes met across the crowd. I waited for something. Anything. An apology, an explanation, shame, guilt, regret. But she just gave me a small, sad smile, the kind you give someone you used to know, and kept walking. The man didn't even notice me. They disappeared into another store, and I stood there in the middle of the mall, surrounded by noise and people and bright lights, and felt something inside me break for the last time. Not my heart. That had already shattered weeks ago. It was the part of me that still wanted to believe people couldn't fake kindness that perfectly. That part died right there, between the phone shop and the escalator. I tried to hate her. I really did. I'd lie awake at night, imagining confrontations, angry speeches, revenge fantasies where I'd expose her to everyone, where I'd track down the new guy and warn him. But the hate never stuck, because hating her meant admitting I'd been a complete fool, and I wasn't ready for that level of self-awareness. So instead, I just let it go. Not because I was noble or enlightened, but because I was too tired to hold on. I stopped checking her Facebook. I stopped driving by places we used to go. I stopped telling the story to people who asked why I looked so tired and hollow. I rented a small bungalow on the quieter side of the island, away from Patong, away from the memories, in a village where nobody knew me and nobody cared. I got a part-time job fixing electrical issues for a local resort, just basic stuff, rewiring outlets and replacing breakers, just to keep my hands busy and my mind occupied. I started going to the beach again, not our beach, but a new one where I didn't see her ghost in every sunset or hear her laugh in every wave. One evening, I met an older Thai woman who sold fresh fruit on the beach every afternoon. Her name was Yai, which means grandmother, and she spoke almost no English. But we managed to communicate through smiles and gestures and the universal language of kindness. She'd always give me extra slices of mango and wave off my money when I tried to pay the full price. One day, She pointed at my face and said something in Thai that I didn't understand, her wrinkled hand touching my cheek briefly. A passing tourist, a young guy with a backpack, stopped and offered to translate. She says you look less sad now. She says when you first came your eyes were dead, but now they're coming back. I laughed, surprised and embarrassed. Tell her thank you. The tourist translated, and Yai nodded, patting my hand with her small, rough one. Then she said something else, longer this time, more serious. The tourist hesitated before translating, like he wasn't sure he got it right. She says Phuket makes people dream and cry. But if you stay long enough, if you don't run away, you learn to see the difference between real dreams and fake ones. She says you're learning. I didn't know what that meant at the time. But I think I do now. If I could talk to Fa today, I wouldn't ask for the money back. I wouldn't demand an apology. I wouldn't even ask for an explanation. I'd ask her why she looked so sad that day in the mall. Because she did. For just a moment before the smile, before she turned away, I saw it in her eyes. Sadness, regret, maybe guilt, maybe nothing, I don't know. And I've made peace with not knowing. Because holding on to the need for answers, for closure, for some kind of validation that what I felt was real, only made me smaller, angrier, less like the man I wanted to be and more like the bitter, broken shell I was afraid of becoming. So I forgave her. Not because she deserved it, not because what she did was okay, but because I needed to let go. Because carrying that weight was killing me slowly, and I'd already lost enough. There's a part of me that wonders if I'll ever trust someone again. If I'll ever let myself be that open, that hopeful, that stupidly, recklessly in love. The honest answer is, I don't know. Some days I think I will. I see couples on the beach, old and young, Thai and foreign, and I think maybe it's possible. Maybe not everyone is like Fa. Maybe some people really do love without agenda, without calculation, without keeping a running tally of what they can extract. Other days I'm sure I won't. I'm sure that part of me is permanently broken, that the scar tissue is too thick to ever feel that vulnerable again. But I've learned that love isn't a mistake. It's a risk. And my risk just happened to cost 600,000 baht in 5 months of my life. Some people lose more. Some people lose less. Some people never risk at all and die wondering what it would have felt like to love someone completely. At least I know. At least I took the chance. At least I can say I tried. Now I sit at the same beach where I first met her. Not the hotel lobby, but the beach where we used to watch the sunset together on those early nights when everything felt possible. The tourists come and go. The vendors call out their prices in a mix of Thai and English. The dogs wander past looking for scraps, and the sky turns that same orange and purple it always does, indifferent to heartbreak and hope alike. I sip my coffee, the cheap kind from the 7-Eleven that costs 25 baht, and I watch the waves roll in and out like they've been doing for millions of years, long before I got here, and long after I'm gone. I think about the man I was when I first arrived in Phuket. Broken, desperate, running from a life I couldn't fix. And I think about the man I am now, still broken in places but not desperate anymore. Not running, just here, just present, just trying to figure out what comes next. I still wear the cheap silver ring Fa gave me on my birthday, 3 months into our relationship. She'd presented it shyly, wrapped in tissue paper, saying she'd saved up from her tips at the hotel. It probably cost 500 baht, maybe less, and it's turning my finger green where the plating has worn off, but I wear it anyway. Not because I'm holding on to her, not because I'm stuck in the past, but because it reminds me of something important. That I'm capable of loving someone completely, foolishly, recklessly, without reservation or self-protection. And that's not a weakness. That's not something to be ashamed of. That's proof I'm still alive, still human, still capable of feeling something other than numbness and regret. I don't regret coming to Phuket. I don't regret meeting her. I don't even regret the money, not really. Because in those 5 months, in those early days when everything felt new and possible, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt wanted. I felt necessary. I felt like maybe, just maybe, I wasn't a waste of space taking up oxygen while better people got on with their lives. And you can't put a price on that, even if someone tries to. People ask me sometimes, other expats I've met through my repair work or at the coffee shops I've started frequenting, if I'd do it again. If I'd fall in love with someone like Pha knowing how it would end. And my answer surprises them every time. I say yes, without hesitation. Because the alternative is staying closed off, staying safe, staying small, building walls so high that nothing can hurt me but nothing can reach me either. And I didn't move halfway across the world, didn't leave everything I knew, didn't burn my old life to the ground just to play it safe in a new country. I came here to feel something, anything, even if it hurt. And it did. God, it hurt more than I thought possible. But it also woke me up. It reminded me I was still capable of hope, still capable of trust, still capable of imagining a future that looked different from my past. There are still nights when I lie in bed listening to the geckos chirp on my ceiling and wonder where she is, if she thinks about me, if she feels any guilt at all, or if I'm just another transaction she's forgotten, another name in a long list of foreign men who thought they were special. But those nights are fewer now. They come maybe once a week instead of every night. Most nights I just sleep. And when I wake up, I make my coffee. I watch the sun rise over the palm trees. I feed the stray cat that's adopted my porch. And I remind myself that I survived. That's more than I thought I could do 6 months ago when I was sitting on that curb outside the empty shopfront feeling like my life was over. I've started talking to people again. Really talking, not just the surface pleasantries you exchange with strangers. I made friends with a German guy named Klaus who runs a dive shop near my bungalow. He's 62, divorced twice, and has been in Thailand for 15 years. We play chess on Thursday evenings at his shop, drinking terrible Thai beer that costs 40 baht a bottle, and talking about everything and nothing. He knows my story. He has his own version of it. Different woman, different amount, same ending. We're all idiots, he said one night, moving his bishop to take my knight. Every single one of us comes here thinking we're different, thinking we're smarter, thinking it won't happen to us. And then it does. And we either leave or we learn. I asked him what he learned. He smiled. That weathered smile of a man who's made peace with his scars. That I'm still here. That's the lesson. I'm still here. I've started fixing things for my neighbors too. Little electrical problems that the local guys charge too much for or can't be bothered with. An old Thai woman named Porn, which is a normal name here, though it made me uncomfortable to say at first, asked me to fix her refrigerator. I spent an afternoon tracing a short in the wiring, replaced a frayed cable, and got it running again. She tried to pay me, but I refused. She insisted, pressing 500 baht into my hand. I took it just to make her happy, and the next day she brought me a container of homemade curry that I ate for 3 days. Her son, a man about my age who spoke decent English, came by to thank me. My mother says you have sad eyes but good heart, he translated. She says she will pray for you at temple. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded and thanked him. But it meant something. It meant I wasn't invisible. It meant I still mattered to someone, even if it was just an old woman who needed her refrigerator fixed. I've even started thinking about what comes next, not in a desperate way like when I first arrived, but in a curious way, in a way that suggests I might actually have a future worth planning for. Maybe I'll stay in Phuket. Maybe I'll move north to Chiang Mai where it's cooler and cheaper and supposedly less full of scammers, though I suspect every place has its version of Pha. Maybe I'll go back to Australia and try to reconnect with my kids, send them messages that aren't just birthday greetings, try to rebuild something from the rubble of my failures as a father. I don't know. But for the first time in a long time, I'm okay with not knowing. I'm okay with uncertainty. I'm okay with the possibility that my life might not look the way I thought it would, but it might still be worth living. Yesterday, I saw a young guy at the beach, maybe 30 years old, sitting with a Thai girl who looked at him the same way Pha used to look at me. They were laughing, taking selfies, feeding each other bites of grilled squid from a vendor's cart. The girl had her head on his shoulder, and he was stroking her hair with this look of absolute contentment on his face. And I felt this strange protective urge, like I wanted to walk over and warn him, tell him to be careful, to watch for the signs, to not give away more than he could afford to lose, to protect his heart and his bank account because the two are more connected than he thinks. But I didn't. I just watched them for a moment and then looked away. Because maybe their story is different, maybe she really does love him. Maybe they'll get married and have kids and live happily ever after in a little house somewhere with a garden and a dog. Maybe he'll be one of the lucky ones. Or maybe 2 years from now he'll be sitting where I'm sitting, on this same beach, wearing a cheap ring that's turning his finger green, wondering how he missed all the red flags that were so obvious in hindsight. Either way, it's his story to live, not mine. I can't save him from his own hope any more than anyone could have saved me from mine. I've learned something important here, something I didn't expect to learn when I bought that one-way ticket out of Perth. Love isn't about being right or being smart or protecting yourself from every possible hurt. It's about being brave enough to let someone in, even if they might destroy you, even if they probably will. Because the pain of being hurt, really hurt, is still better than the numbness of feeling nothing at all. And I'd rather be the guy who loved too much than the guy who never loved at all. I'd rather be the fool who gave 600,000 baht to a woman who didn't deserve it than the cynic who never gave anyone a chance. Fa taught me that. Not through her words, not through her affection, but through her absence. Through the hole she left in my life that forced me to either fill it with bitterness or fill it with something else. I'm still figuring out what that something else is, but at least I'm trying. So here I am, 58 years old, broke by my old standards though comfortable by Thai standards, single, living in a country where I barely speak the language and probably never will. But I'm still here. I'm still breathing. I'm still watching the sunset, and tasting my coffee, and feeling the sand under my feet. And that's enough. It has to be. Because if I spend the rest of my life waiting for Fa to come back, waiting for an apology that'll never come, waiting for some kind of cosmic justice or closure or validation, then she wins. She gets to live rent-free in my head forever, while she moves on with her life and her new boyfriend and her shopping bags from expensive stores. And I didn't survive this just to let her win. I survived because I'm stubborn, because I'm tougher than I look, and because somewhere deep down beneath all the scar tissue and cynicism, I still believe that life has something good left for me. Maybe not love, maybe not money, but something. Peace maybe. Or just the quiet satisfaction of knowing I tried, of knowing I put myself out there, risked everything, and lived to tell about it. The sun is setting now, and the sky is doing that thing it does every evening, painting itself in colors that don't seem real, oranges and purples and pinks that bleed into each other like watercolors. A couple walks by, tourists with matching shirts and sunburns that'll hurt tomorrow. They smile at me, and I smile back. A street vendor, the same one who's been here every evening for as long as I've been coming to this beach, offers me grilled corn, and I buy one even though I'm not hungry. We don't speak the same language, but we understand each other. He knows I'll be here tomorrow. I know he will too. There's comfort in that. In routine, in familiarity, in the small, predictable moments that make up a life. The ocean keeps rolling, the waves keep crashing, the world keeps turning, and I keep sitting here, waiting for nothing in particular. And you know what? That's okay. Because for the first time since I landed in this country with 2 suitcases and a broken heart, I'm not running from anything. I'm not chasing anything. I'm not trying to fix anything or prove anything or become anything other than what I am. I'm just here, present, alive, and maybe that's the real lesson Phuket had to teach me. Not about love or money or trust or the dangers of falling for someone who sees you as an opportunity instead of a person, but about learning to be okay with myself, with my choices, with the mess I made and the man I became because of it. I finish my coffee, stand up, and brush the sand off my shorts. The ring on my finger catches the light, that cheap green-stained silver that costs 500 baht and reminds me I'm human. I look at the ocean one more time, take a deep breath of salt air and evening coolness, and head back to my bungalow. Tomorrow, I'll wake up and do it all again. And the day after that. And the day after that. Not because I have to. Not because I'm stuck here with no other options. But because I can. Because I want to. Because I survived my 600,000 baht love story, survived the betrayal and the heartbreak and the hollow months that followed, and came out the other side as someone I can live with. And that, more than anything Fa ever said to me, more than any promise or kiss or whispered I love you in the dark, makes me feel like maybe I really am a lucky man after all. I think about Greg sometimes, my old mate from Perth who sent me here with his advice and his warnings I didn't fully understand until it was too late. I should call him, tell him he was right about everything. Tell him I learned the hard way what he tried to teach me over beers in a pub that feels like it exists in another lifetime, but I also want to tell him I'm okay, that I survived, that Thailand didn't break me, it just bent me into a different shape, and I'm learning to live in this new form. Maybe I'll call him next week. Or maybe I'll just send him a message with a photo of this sunset and let him figure out the rest. As I walk up the dirt path toward my bungalow, I pass Klaus's dive shop. The lights are on, and I can see him inside, arranging equipment for tomorrow's tour. He sees me and waves. I wave back. Chess on Thursday? He calls out. Wouldn't miss it, I reply. And I mean it. These small connections, these Thursday evening chess games and neighborhood curry deliveries and waves from dive shop owners, they're building something. Not a new life exactly, but a life nonetheless. One that exists independent of Pha, independent of what I lost, independent of the man I used to be when I was married and living in Perth and thought I had everything figured out. Inside my bungalow, the cat is waiting on the porch. I still haven't named her. She's not really mine, just a stray who decided I was worth visiting. I feed her the leftover rice from lunch, and she eats gratefully, purring loud enough that I can hear it over the evening sounds of motorbikes and distant music. I sit on my porch, watching her eat, and feel something I haven't felt in months. Contentment. Not happiness exactly, not joy, but contentment. The quiet satisfaction of a simple moment that doesn't require anything from me except presence. Later, lying in bed with the fan spinning overhead and the geckos chirping their evening songs, I think about everything that led me here. The divorce, the drinking, the decision to run, the first smile from a hotel receptionist who seemed to see something in me worth saving, the months of hope and love and building dreams on foundations that turned out to be sand, the collapse, the emptiness, the slow, painful crawl back to something resembling life. And I realized something that maybe I should have known all along. This was never really about Pha. It was about me. About who I was when I met her, desperate and broken and willing to believe anything that felt like love. About who I became while I was with her, someone who felt valuable and needed and alive. And about who I am now, someone who survived and learned and is still here despite everything. Pha was just the teacher. Expensive teacher, sure. 600,000 baht expensive. But she taught me what I needed to learn. That I can't buy love. That I can't fix myself through someone else. That hope without wisdom is just another word for delusion. But also that I'm stronger than I thought. That I can survive betrayal. That I can forgive even when it's hard. That I can build a life from nothing in a country where everything is foreign and strange and sometimes cruel, and find moments of peace in the spaces between heartbeats. I close my eyes and let sleep take me. Tomorrow is Thursday. Chess with Klaus. Maybe I'll finally beat him. Probably not. But that's okay too, because it's not really about winning anymore. It's about showing up, about being present, about taking each day as it comes and finding something worth holding on to, even if it's just a game of chess with a friend who understands what it's like to lose everything and keep going anyway. The last thought I have before sleep takes me completely is this. I came to Phuket looking for a new beginning, looking for someone to save me from myself, looking for a love story that would make sense of all the pain that came before, and I found all of that, just not in the way I expected. The new beginning wasn't Pha. It was me, learning to stand on my own, learning to be okay with solitude, learning that I don't need someone else to validate my existence. The love story wasn't the romance. It was learning to love myself enough to forgive my mistakes, to accept my failures, to believe I deserve peace even after everything I've done wrong. And the person who saved me wasn't a beautiful Thai girl with a dimpled smile and empty promises. It was me. All along it was me. I just had to lose 600,000 baht to figure it out. And with that thought, I sleep. Not the restless, haunted sleep of the early months, but deep and dreamless. The sleep of a man who's finally learning to let go. The sleep of a man who's survived. The sleep of a man who's still here, still breathing, still believing that tomorrow might be better than today. And if it's not, well, there's always the day after that. Because that's what survival looks like. Not dramatic victory or perfect healing. Just showing up, just trying again, just being here. And I'm good at that now. I'm really good at that. So I sleep, and the island sleeps around me, and somewhere out there under the same moon, Fa is living her life, and I'm living mine, and maybe that's how it was always supposed to end. Not with reconciliation or revenge or closure, but with two people going their separate ways, each carrying the weight of what they did to each other, each learning whatever lessons they were meant to learn. Her lesson? I'll never know. But mine is clear. I'm still here. And that's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything.